Aw, yeah, it's time for another episode of Loki, the Loki leaflet. I forgot. Did we come up with a name for this? I don't remember.
The Loki lowdown.
Yeah, Loki Lowdown, where we're talking all about Loki season 2. I'm your host, Vactor, here in the Vactor-Verse, and I'm with my good buddy, and I'm so glad he hasn't been snapped away, Shaw. How you doing, Shaw?
I'm doing real good, real good. I'm feeling so marvelous because we had Loki last night, and then as well we had the debut of Spider-Man 2 on PS5.
Yeah,
So
it was so
yeah,
good.
both of us have had a chance to play that. I know you've played it a lot more. I'm actually surprised you're here with me today because I doubt you've slept at all.
I had very little sleep last night, but I'm very glad that we are here, Shaw. Perhaps we can do another episode on Spider-Man 2 because there's a lot to go over in that. But this episode, we're going to be talking about Loki Season 2, Episode 3, 1893. So let's get right into it, Shaw. What did you think about Episode 3? How you feeling at the halfway point in Loki?
It's kind of wild that it is the halfway point. This season is just flying. I feel good. I'm glad that I was worried because we had 2 episodes without mention. Or, I'm sorry, without showing Victor Timely or anything more with the King variants, and so I was like, and I think I theorized. I was like, we need to get a variant of He Who Remains back at the TVA to fix this temporal loom because they need that temporal aura. And so I was like, this is going to be a perfect place to bring Victor Timely into it. And sure enough, that's where the show is going. So,
Yes.
yeah, I'm right. But no, I'm loving it. And I love episodes that have sort of a period piece to them. I'm originally from Chicago, so there was like a certain amount of like ownership with that. And I know a lot about the World's Fair in 1893.
Nice.
So it was really cool to see that, happening within the MCU. But
Yeah. I'm also enjoying it. I think episode 2 was my least favorite so far, but that's not to say I didn't enjoy it. It was just the least enjoyable out of these 3 episodes that we've gotten so far. In the halfway point, I'm feeling good. Um, Still not 100% sure where this show's going to end up,
yeah,
but I'm hoping. I think we talked about it on last week's show. This is kind of Marvel's getting back on track for television because there's been some MCU releases that they've come out and it's like, okay, yeah, that was fun, but nothing like when I think when WandaVision came out and when Loki season 1 came out, I was like, yes, this is the MCU hitting on all cylinders. This has got me excited and hopeful for the future of connecting the TV and the movie worlds. And I don't think that it's really lived up to that promise yet of things going right in between. I think so far the best example of this, and you'll know better than me, was Agents of Shield and Winter Soldier, where it was like, okay, Agents of Shield came out, and then Winter Soldier came out the same week, and there was events that
yeah.
happened
Oh
that
yeah,
were
that was epic.
interspersed.
That was a really really cool moment because at that time they really were trying to say it was all connected, and now it's like they don't even acknowledge it. In fact, I think in that MCU timeline that they just released, it kind of doesn't exist in terms of
Aw.
canon. So
Boo.
yeah, real major bummer because Agents of Shield only got better and better. It was really hard to get people into it, but those that stuck through all the way, there were a lot of great payoffs, a lot of great characters, a lot of great stories. They did the Darkhold first, and arguably did it
Ooh.
better.
Oh, wow.
But they don't acknowledge it. It's like it didn't happen, which I feel bad for because Coulson was so great, and he only got greater as a character throughout that show. But
Dang.
that we'd have to
Yeah,
have another episode to really unpack Agents of Shield because there was so much that went down.
yeah. Let's pin that for another one, another time in the Vectorverse. But yeah, I'm excited about where this season is going, and also Kang Dynasty, Secret Wars, everything that's coming up in this phase. But I think this is what I want Marvel TV shows to be like. This the way that Loki season 2 has been playing out. That first episode, like we talked about, just hit the gates running, just right out of the gate. It was like, boom, I'm hitting you in the face with all this stuff. And episode 2, there was a little bit of a slowdown and kind of some confusion about the timeline and did we miss a piece? Like, is there an episode missing here? And now this one, I think it's like, oh yeah, here's Victor Timely, here's the He Who Remains variant that we've been waiting for, and here's Miss Minutes, which we hadn't seen the entire season. So there's some great stuff here about Miss Minutes and Renslayer. We
Yeah.
hadn't seen Renslayer this whole
Yeah,
season.
Renslayer has been MIA for quite some time. Totally. Yeah.
So all of these things are coming together. I did want to note that the opening, I loved the Marvel Studios
Yes.
intro that plays, and they had that old 1800s old timey music playing. I love that.
That was such a nice
And
touch. Yeah.
I thought that was
Really,
perfect.
really, really fun. It felt like you were in like a bar from like the 1800s. It really felt, and you were just like there was a player piano going or something. Like, love it. I love
Yeah.
it.
Something that was kind of odd to me. So when we first meet Renslayer in this episode, she's in 1868 and she's in the sacred timeline and she gives the book to the variant. But then the next time we see it, it's in the branch timeline.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm still trying to wrap my brain around that. Was her event, like her giving that to him, is that what branched the timeline?
Yeah, that's what I think.
Okay.
Because that's not how things had gone originally.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So it's almost like He Who Remains had sort of selected Victor Timely as the suitable replacement for himself, or maybe Victor Timely was always going to become He Who Remains, but now this version of himself is more in the know,
right?
More aware, armed with knowledge he didn't have, or that he learned along the way. So, or I mean, who knows? When it comes down to it, like the idea of that bootstraps paradox of you created the TVA, therefore, but now you're given the book of the TVA that you created before you created it. Like it's a whole thing. So
right.
Timey-wimey stuff going on, but
yeah,
very, very cool. Very, very cool. When Mobius was talking about, they're like trying to figure out why would she go back? What was happening during this time in Chicago? My brain went to the Chicago fire. That was a huge thing that went down. And as well, of course, the World's Fair. And when they finally arrive in 1893 and they're like walking through the World's Fair and Mobius is like really excited. He's like, oh man, they had the White City. He says the White City, Edison, H.H. Holmes. I was like, I know about this stuff. This is so cool. So I'm not sure if you know this, but there was a book. I don't know when it came out, but it was called The Devil in the White City. And it was about H.H. Holmes, who is this famous serial killer who was abducting people during the World's Fair, putting them into this like house that he himself designed, which was basically like a set full of like hidden rooms and booby traps and stuff, and he was killing people and hiding them within like the house and stuff, and he was luring them there. It was wild. And there was going to be a movie featuring, I think Leonardo DiCaprio was going to play H.H. Holmes, but I think it got scrapped. But I was really excited because it's a very fascinating part and very like kind of scary, kind of crazy part of like just Chicago history and the World's Fair. And if you remember the show Timeless, that was on NBC, they covered that in one of their episodes. They went to Chicago World's Fair time frame and they were amongst those getting caught, and they had to like get out of like the clutches of H.H. Holmes and his like shenanigans and stuff. It was pretty wild. So if you're not familiar with H.H. Holmes, look him up. He's an intriguing, very scary individual who did killed a lot of people back in the day.
Man, and speaking of intriguing and terrible characters, Shoff, the Miss Minutes in this episode that we get is the like, it almost feels like the stalker girlfriend, like the crazy
Yeah.
ex, and also like she's manipulating things and planning things, and then even to that very last shot of the episode where she's like, "I know things that you don't know, and you're not gonna like them." I was like, "Oh."
Yeah. Do you think that she's talking about the fact that Renslayer is a variant,
I was trying to
or that she
think
was
about.
plucked from the sacred timeline? Because like she doesn't know that about herself yet. And so I think that's the reveal that she needs, because that's the one that Hunter B-15 or whatever knows, is that
Mhm.
Renslayer was pulled from that timeline.
I was trying to wrap my head around like what could she possibly not like, and I was going to kind of some of the comic stuff where basically in the comics she's always destined to be Kang's love interest, but she dies in every timeline. Like every time he tries to be with her, she dies. So I didn't. That's where my brain went. I was like, oh, she's gonna tell her that she's destined to die, and she's she can never fulfill that
Mm,
love with him, that unrequited love. So it could be. I'm sure you are correct, Shop. It's the she was pulled from the timeline and she had a whole separate life.
yeah.
And that's what everyone's all these people except for Mobius seems to be grasping onto is like, man, I wish I could go back to my original timeline and see. That's what everybody back in the TVA is all about. But I'm just curious to see where Renslayer fits in all this, and then how is she getting out? Uh, at the end of the episode where they push her forward to the end of time, the only technology that she has is Miss Minutes with her. Like she doesn't have a temp pad or she doesn't have any of the things to get back. So I was like, I guess maybe Miss Minutes will help her build something or something. But
Yeah.
I was curious about that. Like you're stuck at the end of time. What are you gonna do? So
Yeah, that's a good point. And the other thing about Renslayer that's interesting is a lot of the comic book history between her and Kang is that they kind of tend to double cross each other a lot of times. So like as much as they're like into each other, they're always backstabbing each other. And we saw a glimpse of that in this episode
yeah,
because a variant, Victor Timely, who doesn't want any partnerships of any kind. She said the P
yeah.
word, and that was enough for him. So he had to cut her loose, literally. Um, and I thought that was very synonymous with what happens in the comics for these characters. So that's really cool. The obsessive girlfriend for Miss Minutes, that I didn't see coming, but I'm excited for it because she's really shaping up to be such a villain. And honestly, I wouldn't even be surprised if she was working, if like what she keeps saying is like he who remains has set all this up for, you know, and Miss Minutes is acting, you know, on his behalf. I would not be surprised if she's the one, uh like
Pulling the
he didn't,
strings.
yeah, that she's going rogue and doing what she thinks is right,
Yeah.
and is basically the true villain of the show.
That's what a lot of people in the first season were theorizing, but I think a lot of them were doing it as a joke, like,
Yeah.
"Aha, Miss Minutes is the true villain." But wouldn't it be funny if that turned out to be the actual truth of the of the series? I don't know if we're gonna get a season 3 on this, time will
From
tell.
what I've seen, I don't think so.
Oh, man.
Which is weird because you only have 3 episodes to somehow wrap this up.
Right.
Like, how are you gonna do that? I think if anything, you just have to set the path in motion for what will happen with King Dynasty,
Mm,
Secret Wars, like where he comes back, because
right,
I don't think we'll see him between now and then until those
right.
movies.
And a lot of people are kinda theorizing that Disney is waiting for this show to be done to announce what's gonna happen with Jonathan Majors. What is the future of Jonathan Majors? Because we haven't heard anything, since the allegations and since everything has come out about Jonathan Majors. Disney has been very quiet. Like, I haven't heard a single press announcement, anything about what they're doing going forward, which I thought was weird. Either way, it's either you're supporting him, you're standing by him, and like he's our guy, he's the villain of all of these movies, or I'm sorry, we're pushing ourselves away. We're going in another direction. And it's very easy with the way that Kang is set up in here with the variants. It would be very easy to cast another actor and say, "Oh yeah, it's a variant of Victor Timely or a variant of He Who Remains, whoever." So I don't know what Disney's thinking. I'd be really curious to be a fly on the wall and hear what their meetings are like.
Yeah.
But I wanted to get your take on Jonathan Majors' performance in this episode as Victor Timely, completely separate variant. Like we've never seen this version of him before. What did you think?
You know, I'm not really sure what I thought. I've been thinking about it all night and all morning because I had a feeling you're going to ask me because I'm a big Jonathan Majors like actor fan in
I
terms
am
of like
also.
what his like performances have been.
Yes.
And the,
The choices that he made,
they
the
were
stuttering.
very like I mean they were choices. I'll give him that. Like they were very unique
Okay.
and they created something more for the character, but I just question why. Like,
Hmm.
what is the motivation behind and that like, if he was doing, like, interviews or stuff, like, if there wasn't the strike going on and we could have sort of the discourse of how did you come to this character? What were you bringing to it? Like, I would wanna know that because that might help me appreciate what he's doing because there's this gap of time, right? Like, from 1863 or whatever that year was, maybe that's not the right year, 67, I can't remember, to 1893. Um, there's that gap of 25 years.
1868.
68. Okay.
Yep.
So there's that gap of 20 some odd years. And that was formative. We didn't hear the boy talk, so we didn't know if he already had that sort of like delivery,
Right.
that
Right.
inflection and how that works out. But like, was it the choice to just be eccentric? And that's like where it comes down to, or is there something more to it? Is there something cultural? Is there like I wanted to kind of really understand that better because while watching it, it just felt a little too put on for
Hmm.
me, um, and inauthentic. So I
Just
hate
not
to
as
say that I didn't
believable.
really love it, but I would like to give him the benefit of the doubt because I know he's an incredible actor. So I think for me, I have to like sort of just put the brakes on and not judge harshly until I know like what was his mindset for it. If
Hmm.
we ever get to find that out, I'd love to
Right.
know.
Yeah, I would too. It'd be interesting to see, do we ever see Victor Timely again? Does the next episode jump? And as we talked about on our previous episode, there have been reviewers that got the first 4 episodes.
Okay.
So we did not. So we don't know exactly what happens in the next episode, but do we see Victor Timely again? Like how much of it is him and then how much is he playing a variant in the next episode? I don't know. But it'll be very interesting to see where this goes. And maybe Victor Timely is the only variant we see in this season. That I could see that happening as well. Just like in Loki season 1, He Who Remains was the only version that we saw. And then in Quantum Mania, we saw a bunch of different ones in that Council of Kangs. But I think I'm somewhere in the middle. It wasn't I didn't feel like it was too much, but I also didn't feel like there was a point to it as well. Like there wasn't like, "Oh yeah, this was a great choice. I'm glad that he made it," and the stuttering and everything. My interpretation of it was basically, "Oh, this makes him this much different." Like if you put He Who Remains and Victor Timely next to each other, besides the hair, it's like the speech is the only difference that we're going to see for the most part. So I think that was his mindset of I'm going to make this choice of having the different differences between the character. What can I do to make it, stand out? So I thought it was okay. I think it wasn't the best, it wasn't the worst, but I'm also like you, a big fan of Jonathan Majors as an actor. So love spending time with him and his screen presence is always there. And I loved that this episode was kind of like Chase the Victor episode. Like everybody's after him, everybody, and he's also conning everybody and all these devices that he had made for people, like, oh, this one makes you grow taller, and this one is like all these things. I thought that was interesting. That was fun for this episode. That was the whole episode was kind of like a chase
Mm-hmm.
episode.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but
I was thinking maybe this whole aspect of choosing Victor Timely, like the true motivation behind it is he's sort of harmless. Like he's smart, but he's harmless. He's there to
right.
serve a purpose, which is maybe He Who Remains understood that if he was going to get offed, then the timeline, like the loom itself, would get out of control. There would need to be somebody who could resolve that. Thus, he set Miss Minutes on a path to find him because he knew that he could do that. But ultimately, he is harmless and unable to properly like defend himself against a much worse variant that once things are back under control by the TVA, then that variant can sort of take over and conquer.
Yeah.
So maybe like Miss Minutes is really getting her guidance from another variant that is going to sort of supersede him.
Right. More dangerous. Like this one
Exactly.
is
Yeah.
the
And I think
safer.
that could be a great way for Loki season 2 to end, is
Mm.
really establish just how scary and how
Yeah.
powerful Kang Prime, like a real Kang,
Yeah.
could be. Because I
Right.
think I've saw in interviews they said that the Kang we saw in Quantumania still isn't the Kang, like the true, like full powered Kang that we will
Right.
see. So,
Yeah.
So who knows?
Yeah, which is, I think that's a good choice because when we were watching Quantumania, I don't think we ever got that feeling of this is the guy that the multiverse should be scared of, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, he's a threat in Quantumania, but ultimately he gets taken out by ants, and the Kang that you and I know would not get taken out. I think that is the version of Kang that
Yeah.
I want to see of
Well,
where is this guy?
and the other thing is, I read recently there was an article, and I don't have it up to speak to it like verbatim, but I remember them saying that the original ending of Quantumania was a lot darker, and it did establish Kang as a credible threat, that he
Oh
did
man.
win by the end of the movie, which is really how it should have gone down. Like it should have been
Yeah.
that way. I personally think that you can tell that there's a switch. I think that Scott and Hope actually got trapped in the quantum realm again, and then
Dang.
King won. Like that's
That's
how I think
yeah.
it really went down, and then they had to reshoot that ending, and that's why that whole ending in like the restaurant when they all like are like hanging out, like that's just, it felt very like added. So
Yeah, that's a shame because that would have been a more perfect ending. Like you can have a dark ending when you know there's going to be other episodes. Like think about Empire Strikes Back. Like there's the dark episode, and then okay, then there's the light episode next.
right.
There's the return to form, and if everything is winning and you never have a loss, like there's just not as much dramatic tension, and it's just not as much of an interesting story. So with these MCUs, it's like I feel like they have to play the long game, and they have to be like, okay, we know this is setting up the Avengers movie. Like the whatever the Avengers movie is in that phase should be the culmination point.
Yeah.
And I feel like with Quantumania, maybe they got scared and they were like, "Oh wait, no, we can't have a dark ending because it's going to be how many years before the next movie, so we have to end it on a good note." Like I feel like that may have played a role in it. Obviously, we don't know, but that's our speculation. But yeah, I would have preferred a darker ending for Quantumania. Um, you said you had some notes that you took on this one,
Oh
Shelf. Is
yeah.
there anything that stood out to you in this episode specifically?
Yeah. I might have a crush on Ravonna Renslayer.
Ooh, I thought you were gonna say Miss Minutes. Yeah.
No, she's scary. She's that scary ex-girlfriend that you
Uh,
don't you don't call her again. No, but Renslayer, man, she is gorgeous, and also a great actress too.
yes,
So,
I also like her.
and I like to see that they're doing more stuff between the two of them with Victor Timely and Renslayer. That there is
Right.
they need to meet and they need to have interactions. And we even saw in that recording that Loki was listening to in the future or whatever, He Who Remains or some Kang variant was like thanking Renslayer for all of her
Yes.
help and stuff.
Yes.
So we know that they are a duo in some capacity, and they need to be,
Right.
because that's comic book lore right there.
Right.
This whole throughput multiplier, I'm wondering what that is.
Yes.
If that has something to do with what OB was working on, I don't know, but it'll be nice. I can't wait to see Victor Timely interacting with OB. That'll be a great
Yes.
exchange, the two of them
Oh,
together.
and I gotta say, my favorite moment of this entire episode was with OB in the TVA when Mobius was like,
We could
"Can we
hack the
hack?"
system.
Yeah, and he was like, "We can. That's great!" Like that moment, I was dying. I was
He's
laughing
got
so
such a
hard.
great delivery, such an honest, like, there's so many moments where the line could be read with a certain amount of sarcasm, but he approaches it with such earnestness that
Yes,
it just comes across so pure.
right,
And
100%.
and I think that's just a testament to the kind of person that he is
Yes,
and is able to portray, because I think very easily that line could have come across a total different way.
right.
I loved it. Yeah, you're so right. That was great. He's like, oh, then we're still gonna die. Yeah, Miss Minutes, I definitely feel like she's gonna be the baddie overall. And
Hey, y'all.
hey y'all, what else did I write down? This is just a one-off takeaway, but I loved that Mobius was his version of like doing reconnaissance at the World Fair, was basically trying all the food.
Yeah,
It was
I like a good drink.
like,
Yeah,
well, we got to try these deep fried
yeah.
Twinkies.
That was great. And anytime with Owen Wilson is also a great. That's what's really lovely about this show is the casting. I think, like you said, Obi, Ki Hui Kwan, um, obviously Tom Hiddleston, Sylvie, like every actor in every role, I think is performing spectacularly. And I just whoever the casting director was on this show is uh, kudos to them
Yeah,
because the chemistry between the actors and then just their performances that they're all putting in has just been fantastic. But I love when Owen Wilson is just talking about anything. Like you said, he's talking about food, he's talking about jet skis, water skis, like whatever it is. He feels like he would be my friend. It feels like Owen Wilson is a good guy. So I
yeah,
love the performance that he's putting in
yeah.
on this as well.
Another one came to me. Loki seeing the carved out statues
Yes.
of Odin, Thor, and Balder the Brave, and he was like, nobody knows who Balder is, which is a funny in joke because the meta reference to the fact that Balder has not appeared in any of the Thor movies. Plus, he was supposed to be part of the Illuminati in Doctor
Ooh.
Strange, and Daniel Craig was supposed to play him, and that was scrapped.
Oh,
So like Balder was
man.
supposed to be in there, and he was taken out. So like it's just a very like in joke for
Ah,
like those who like know MCU. I
yes.
love that.
I don't know why, but Marvel spoiled that. I got spoiled on that moment in one of the marketing things.
Oh, really? Okay.
They were
I
like,
did not. Yeah.
"Yeah, Loki's gonna meet Thor and Odin," and I was like, "What?" And I quickly turned away because I was like, "Oh no!" And then when I saw it in here, I was like, "Oh, okay." But I don't know why they put that in the marketing. But man, yeah, I think overall I really enjoyed this episode.
Yeah,
Like I said, this was a upswing for me from episode 2. 1 is I think still my favorite, but there's just a lot of promise. The ending for sure of what's going to happen between Victor Timely, Renslayer, Miss Minutes, Loki, and Mobius. Like all of these things, the TVA, what's the future of the TVA? How's the loom going to get fixed? All of these things, they've done a good job of spinning the plates and keeping your anticipation of, oh man, what's going to happen next? That anxiety and like you want to get that release of the mystery being solved. So they did a great cliffhanger on this episode, and hopefully they're going to continue to put out some great stuff moving forward. We've got 3 more episodes left
that's
of
right.
Loki Shoff. I'm feeling good. Um, After this, I really don't have a hope a hopeful feeling for the MCU at the moment. Like, this was the one I was really looking forward to. The Marvels is next month, and I feel like it's just gonna be a one and done, like, it's not
Yeah.
gonna connect to anything, and then what I don't even know what's next after the Marvels. Like, do you off the top of your head, do you even know what's next
No,
after?
not a clue. Yeah.
So and they push back Daredevil, they push back oh, you know what? Actually, I do know. Echo, they're just dumping the whole season of Echo, so I don't have high hopes for that, but
I don't even have an interest in that. Like that's and I feel bad because, she's certainly a character and she's certainly like worthy of attention, but like it's to me it's digging at the bottom of the barrel for no good reason. Like other
yeah,
than an attempt to be diverse, an attempt to be inclusive. Like it just that that's not what the various demographics want. They don't want
right,
you scraping the bottom of the barrel for
right,
characters that
right,
fit so that they see themselves. Like that's not how that works. That's pandering. That's what that is.
yeah.
So
You know what it feels like? Not specifically, but the way that we got to the end of the DC EU where, okay, Flash was coming out, Blue Beetle was coming out,
yeah,
but we already knew that didn't matter because the James
yeah,
Gunn universe is coming to wipe it all away.
yeah,
That's kind of what I'm getting the feeling of this Echo feels like it's the end of the previous MCU version that we had been seeing, and they're moving towards this new TV model of having a showrunner and having a pilot and having like more traditional than what the previous MCU stuff has been. So it almost feels like it doesn't matter because we know the future is changing already. And so not only on top of what you just said, the hey, this feels like well, we have to make it so that everyone feels included and it's not necessarily because okay this was a great story, this was a great thing that we had um sitting on the sidelines like oh we got to put in Echo because she's the player off the bench that's going to win the game for us, and we've got these other heavy hitters that people are more interested in like Daredevil.
yeah,
Even the Riri Williams show, we don't even know what's going on with that, and I I was so looking forward to that, but now I'm going into that with lowered expectations. Hopefully, it's better than what I'm thinking, but I'm really looking forward to whatever Marvel turns into because I don't know if I said it on here, if I said it on another podcast, but I really think that the MCU, it's not a matter of if they come back to the heights of Endgame, it's when. And how long is it gonna be, right? Is it gonna be a year? Is it gonna be 2 years? How long is it gonna be before
mm,
Marvel gets back to that point where you and I are like, "I can't believe what I just saw. Are you kidding me?" Like, "What? I can't wait for the next thing."
it's true.
So,
It's true. I think after Secret Wars, I think it's going to be a full on reboot. I think that
ooh,
that's going to be the definitive end of the
mm,
MCU as we know it, and then they can start fresh,
right.
recasting, whatever,
Yeah,
and new
I can see
stories
that.
not dependent on the previous timeline that doesn't exist anymore. I think that'll be their reset button for
Mm,
sure. It
very
should have been
interesting
Flash,
show.
like the Flash movie should have been the reset button, but they didn't do that right. I
Right.
was looking after Marvels. We've got Echo, like you said. There's also Agatha, Coven of
Oh,
Chaos,
yeah,
or
forgot
whatever they're
about that.
calling that these
Yes, right,
days.
right.
Has gone through so many changes. Deadpool 3 was supposed to come out in May
Ooh.
of 2024, and now that's off of 2024's calendar
Ah,
completely because
dang.
of the SAG strike.
Uh,
So that might not even be in 2024, which is awful. Captain America was supposed to be in July, and I don't know if that's done filming, so
oh,
that might
no.
not be on the books either. Like you said, Ironheart. I think I saw. I don't know if this is official, but I think I saw that Sacha Baron Cohen was cast as Mystery Man or Mysterious Man, which
Oh,
would
wow.
be lending itself to that theory that he's playing Mephisto, if that really happens. And then Daredevil, like you said, that was scrapped and is being retooled. Thunderbolts was supposed to come out in December of 2024. Who
Hey.
knows if that'll still happen? So Man.
Man.
And then into 2025 we got Blade and stuff. So What If? I don't know why What If has been pushed back so far, because
Yeah, really.
in my opinion, like animation, first of all, it does not have the same budget,
Right.
and does not have the same production time involved with that. So
Right.
like I feel like if they're going to need to fill in some gaps, that's where What If should be happening. They should be doing more animated stuff to sort of like fill the everything. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Man, Shuff. Well, 2024. I'm depressed on what's coming in 2024.
I know, it's a downer. It's a major downer.
But we will be here in the Vactor-Verse covering whatever comes out from Marvel, DC, anything comic book, and Star Wars related here in the Vactor-Verse. Don't forget, we've got all the supers now. Super thanks, super chat. You can always, when you're leaving a comment down below, if you click on that little super button, it helps support us, give us a little encouragement and a little monetary gain for us here at the Vactor-Verse that we can put into, like I said, equipment. We can put into resources to make the shows better. So thank you very much for everyone who is watching right now, listening. Leave a comment down below. Let us know what you're thinking about Loki right now. I'm curious what you're thinking about Victor Timely, Miss Minutes, Renslayer, all these characters that we loved. What's going through your heads as you watch these things? Shoff, thank you very much for joining me, my friend. As always,
thank you for having me.
I can't wait to talk about Loki Season 2, Episode 4 next week. All right, guys.
I'm going to do this end up. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Here we go.
Do it, Shoff.
I low-key love Loki. And you should too.
Yeah.